And one thing I like about Cohen is for him, at the root of his philosophy is players over plays. He's not going to overthink stuff. Okay, what does this situation call for? Well, we do this. No. Get the ball to Mike Evans. What are we doing? Third down? Hit Chris Godwin on a crosser on the outside. Like, that's what this guy does.
Just call the old Manziel play. It's always a good play.
Right. Just, go to the Buick, bro.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. And the guys have really bought in. They like Canales a lot, but the guys are really excited. They really bought in to what he's doing here. And I think you're going to see an improvement in this offense, especially with Baker kind of coming in and having – he's always going to have a chip on his shoulder. He'll find a way. You guys watched him at Texas Tech. But having the ability to just kind of sit back and not worry about, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm a career backup.
Only two things I hate more than missing throws, and that's lying and skim milk. And skim milk's just water lying about being milk. So got to make those throws.
And welcome back, latest and greatest episode of the Shaving Points podcast. My name is Jayden May, joined as always by my co-host Quentin Crisco. And joining us tonight, a very special guest helping us break down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have Mr. JC Allen.
What's going on, guys? What an intro. I mean, what a quote. What a quote.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. I was searching for one today, and I was like, this is it. This is the one.
That was great. I'm going to have to bring that up to him. I'm going to see if his opinion's changed on skim milk when I see him next on Thursday for sure.
JC, can you tell everyone where they can find your work and anything you might want to highlight about what you're putting out there right now?
Yeah, for sure. So we're starting with the best, obviously, and then we'll go to the other teams that aren't going to win the NFC South. I like your style there, but name is JC Allen. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it nowadays, at JC Allen NFL. I'm one of the types that I like to follow the league. So if you're one of those people who love football, if your favorite team disappeared and you would just want to know what's going on with every team in the league, I'm your one-stop shop for everything Bucs. I got everything you guys need there. So definitely check me out there. All my work is over at Sports Illustrated BucsGameday, so you can find all my work over there. We're pumping out content as training camp continues. And then I have a podcast called the Pirate Parlay over on the Sick Podcast Network. Kind of talking with Quentin earlier. He's like, is that a gambling podcast? I was like, no, it's like Pirates of the Caribbean Parlay, so Bucs Talk, Pirate Parlay kind of goes hand in hand there. But
I get it now.
Yeah, you get it? So,
I thought gambling as well.
It's all good. I spelled parlay wrong, so it's probably why. But anyways, I'm a writer too. Go figure. But great stuff over there. I got Todd Bowles on last week. I got Liam Cohen on, the offensive coordinator. I got rookie Jalen McMillan coming on Wednesday, the 31st, whenever this airs. So if it probably already didn't air yet, go back and watch it. He's been lighting it up over there. So a lot of good stuff cooking over here, down here in Tampa. And I'm excited to get on here, chop it up with you guys, and keep the content flowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when you think about and look at the Bucs roster, what's the area that you start at, like saying this is the strength of the roster? This is where it all starts for the Bucs.
I think safety. I think you look no further than safety. They got the best safety in the league in Antione Winfield Jr., capable of doing it all. Quite frankly, you need him down in the box. You need him at slot. You need him in the back end of the field, blitzing, creating turnovers, saving touchdown scoring plays like he did in Carolina. He can do everything, and he does it well. He's an all-pro for a reason, highest paid defensive back for a reason. And I think he just kind of is the tip of the iceberg, especially in that back end of the secondary that makes everything go, the communication he has. Then you bring back Jordan Whitehead, who was that hard-hitting safety, who can play really well in the box, but has really improved his coverage and his ability to make plays on the ball. Last year, obviously, that opening game, Aaron Rodgers went down 3 interceptions in that one game off Josh Allen. But even more so, he's shown the ability to grow as a coverage player as well, not such a liability when asked to drop back. And I think the two of them who have experienced working with each other and have already kind of shown that throughout training camp that it's going to be a seamless fit, putting him back in the defense really highlights one of the strengths on that defensive side of the ball. And then you kind of look behind them, you're like, oh, Kayvon Merriweather, like that's a strength. You got two guys, but really it's so much more than that. Kayvon Merriweather, Iowa guy, enough said, right? Those Iowa safeties are so smart, instinctual, and he got to start 2 games last year. He's been cross-trained at free safety, strong safety this year. He missed the first week of camp, but came back, and he's already been making plays on the ball. So he's another guy. But they also, it goes further than that. Christian Izien, who played nickel for them as an undrafted free agent, he's getting cross-trained at strong safety, free safety, kind of in that Antione Winfield Jr. style, smaller guy, but packs a wallop, good range and coverage. Tavier Thomas is getting cross-trained there as well. He's got 3 interceptions so far in camp and 6 practices. And then, Tyke Smith, who's not on here as well, the rookie that they drafted, he's getting, play at safety, played a little there at Georgia. He's been drawing absolutely rave reviews. He's in the mix for nickel, but we know Bowles likes to just get creative back there. So I expect to see packages with Antione Winfield Jr., Jordan Whitehead, Christian Izien, or Tavier Thomas, all these guys on the field at some point on the same time, just because of how multiple they can do. But you hear guys like Tavier Thomas, who's a 6-year vet coming into his 7th year, saying Tyke's picked this defense up so quickly. He's like a veteran. He's teaching me things about safety because he's never played it before. And he's just, flying around, and coaches, players alike on offense and defense just rave reviews about this kid. He's been running ones at nickelback, kind of splitting some time up there. So I think safety is a position you look at and you're like, okay, they got 2 dedicated safeties, but they got like 5 guys who can play safety in a pinch and could probably do it at a high level. So I think that's the strength of this roster. If you're looking at pure position groups, that's number 1 for me.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, especially from a Todd Bowles defense, I feel like he always has the defensive back room really playing very diverse roles, all sorts of very interchangeable roles throughout the defense. And I mean, I feel like a guy like Tyke Smith is a great fit in a Todd Bowles defense. But when I look at the cornerbacks, tell me a little bit about Zion McCollum, what to expect from him this year. Because I believe, is he going to be starting outside across from Dean?
Yeah, so, and go figure, former safety Todd Bowles has his safety room in check, right?
Yeah.
But Zion McCollum is a name that you really need to kind of get used to. Last year, he played all over the field, started 9 games. Jamel Dean had some injuries. He went in for him. Carlton Davis had some injuries, went in from him. Ryan Neal, the strong safety that they brought in from Seattle, who was graded as the number 1 safety for PFF. That way you kind of look at these grades on here for PFF and be like, it's not the NLBL because he was unplayable almost last year, and he got to start at safety as well. So this kid is one of the most athletic corners that have ever tested coming out of the combine. His RAS score was off the charts. He's got the length, he's got the height, he's got the 4.33 speed, and really things are starting to come together for him this year. He didn't really play much his rookie year, got thrust into action a little sooner than he probably needed to, missed a lot of time in camp as well. Last year, you saw that kind of ascent, took some. You wanted to see more interceptions after. I think he had like 15 or 16 at Sam Houston State. Not, top Power 5 school, but still, that's, ball production's ball production. And you didn't really see any of those last year interceptions. But this year, speaking to him, he's trained his butt off all season. He bought a jugs machine, and him and his wife go out to fields and they work on catching balls on the jugs. He's got his wife running it, and is like, they bought a generator so they can plug it in the generator so it can feed the jugs machine. But he's got goals and aspirations of 6 touchdowns. For him, the biggest thing is he finally Bulls defense. I mean, you talk to any of these guys, they're like, it's crazy. Tavier Thomas, I talked to him the other day. I got an interview up on my page, both on Pirate Parlay and on my Twitter X page. And he's like, I went from Cleveland to having like 10 calls to Houston to having like 8 to 10 calls. I can hear there's like 58 calls. I'm like, what's going on? So Bulls defense is very complicated. So Zion's finally at the point where he knows it like the back of his hand. Not only does he know it, he's also played at nickel. He's played at safety. So he knows what everybody else is supposed to be doing because he had to learn those areas of the playbook. So things have started to slow down for him tremendously, to the point where he told us in the offseason that he's not relying on his speed as much as he's done in years past. He's using it as a tool to break on balls and to know when he can take those chances. He's locked down Mike Evans a few times in camp so far. Came down with a pick 6 Thursday's practice. So I mean, he's flying around making plays to the balls And I think he's going to be a name that might surprise a lot of people this season that might have never heard of him.
And with the difficulty in the calls that you're talking about, is that more like disguise stuff that might be different depending on what they see coming out of the play, or is it like fire zone stuff, or what exactly is going on?
It's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of everything, especially on the back end, it's all based off communication. Like, you need to be able to communicate what you're seeing, so people fall into the right spots, whether you're in zone, whether you're in man. But there's also just different things based on what the front's doing, what your responsibilities are. Because, Bulls will send, line up Lavonte David as a defensive tackle, drop Vita Vea in coverage, so there's so many different, your responsibility can change like that based on, what they're calling in and what plays are going. So, it's kind of a little bit of mixture of everything in between there. And like I said, he's finally at the point where he understands everything that's going on. That's allowing him to use his speed as a weapon instead of using it as a crutch or using it as something to fall back on.
And with that aggressiveness that Bulls does bring as a play caller, like I notice how much green I see on the run defense with these guys, which has to be so key when you are willing to be as aggressive as Bulls is. Like, that these guys need to be tackling, need to be playing the run lanes well. Like, it seems like they really target those guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's consistently, ranked high in run defense. They know how to play aggressively, but instinctually and smart, where they can also, know where their gaps are, know where they can take their risks and chances. And also, they've been doing it for so long at a high level. A guy like Lavonte David sees something and he's gone. There was a play, I forget who it was. I think it might have been Carolina, but it was a pitch to the outside, and Lavonte was already running to the outside area where the ball carrier was going to be. Tackle for loss for 3 yards. He was already there before he could even come anywhere near the line of scrimmage because he just saw it and recognized it. So
Lavonte David's so good.
He's the most underrated linebacker I've ever seen with my entire eyes. In my entire life, with my eyes in my entire life, not my entire eyes, just part of my eyes.
Entire eyes with your life. No, he's a guy that we talk about often on this podcast, about guys that get overlooked, get disrespected, and like he's like one of the go-to names, and Mike Evans as well, who we'll talk about later on. But I just feel like something about Tampa just buries people in the minds of the.
It's crazy because you take
the greater audience,
right?
But,
you take his numbers, you stack him up next to Bobby Wagner, Luke Kuechly, and I ask you to who's who, and you're gonna say, "Oh, well, this was probably this guy because of the numbers." But no, it's Lavonte David. He's got more turnovers. He's more turnovers, more tackles for loss. But he didn't play in the Legion of Boom. He didn't play with Kansas in the Super Bowl. Panthers,
and he's been doing it for 12 years.
Right, consistently at a high level. Him and Bobby Wagner came in together. Bobby Wagner is still getting All Pros and Pro Bowls and having half the type of season that Lavonte is. So still a great player, not taken away from any of those guys, but Lavonte needs
I almost felt like when they drafted Devin Bush, it was almost kind of this idea of like, okay, Lavonte David will pass the torch to him.
Devin White.
Devin White. I'm sorry, Devin White. The other
we got our Devins confused on here too.
Yeah, Devin Bush. We
did the same thing on the Steelers.
Yeah, and then he outlasts him. He's still here. Devin White's gone. But so how are they gonna fill the void that Devin White left? And I'm not sure what your thoughts on Devin White were, but if KJ Britt comes in here, get JJ Russell behind him. Maybe I'm missing a few lower end roster guys here, but what's kind of going to happen at that other linebacker spot?
Yeah, so Devin White is such an enigmatic player. He's got the speed, he can blitz you, but there's just something there missing. Whether that's film work, whether that's and I think what happened too, he won a Super Bowl. He had a great run during that Super Bowl. The next 2 years, he's gotten recognized by ESPN executives as a top 10 linebacker in the league based off past performances when he was nothing but the last 2 years. He's a coverage and liability. He had difficulties getting off blocks once he was engulfed by, guards and centers and tackles climbing to the next level. And he also free ranged a lot. He just kind of freelanced and free ranged a lot and was often found in the wrong area, running into his own teammates. There's skill there for sure, but they tried to hone that in at a certain point. He just became someone that was difficult to be around in the locker room, whether that's teammates or media. But I think KJ Britt came in last year and you saw a guy who might not be as athletically gifted as Devin White, but a guy who puts the work in, a guy who I had him on my podcast earlier this season. I'm like, so what do you like to do for fun? He's like, mostly watch film and, work out. I was like, yeah, but like when you're not, he's like, well, I like to hunt rabbits. I go out and hunt rabbits with my uncle like once a year in Alabama. I'm like, okay, just that's it. Like once a year, like hang out with my daughter, watch film.
I get 1 day away from football a year.
Yeah,
hunt rabbits.
Watch his film with his daughter.
Junkie, like he's a junkie, and you saw that because last year you'd be like, how did KJ Britt get from point A to point B? I know how fast he is. It's because he's so smart. He puts so much time and effort into knowing what his opponent's doing, knowing where he can do this and do that it really shows up on film and it makes him appear his, people say play speed faster than time speed. That's KJ Britt. He's a 2-down thumper who's gonna still try to play some third downs here, but a guy you don't have listed on there, Servassier Dennis, who they drafted in the 5th round last year. He's gonna play a lot this year. They're gonna find packages, whether that's Britt coming off the field on 3rd down and Servassier Dennis going in there, or just other certain packages. He started a game last year against the Colts. It might have been the Niners, but he performed pretty well. He's one thing that people forget about him was how lethal he was as someone coming off the edge as a blitzer. When he was at Pitt, he had 7 sacks his senior year there. And he was very dynamic there, but has also got a lot of range to play coverage. J.J. Russell's another guy who started a game against the Colts last year due to injury, and he came in, had a sack, and played fairly well, and showed that, in a pinch, he's a core special teamer, but in a pinch, they can rely on him to come in and play meaningful snaps. And I think he played his hair off during training camp. Very surprised no one picked him up on waivers when he was cut down. Came back to the practice squad by week 5. He was on the active roster with offers from other teams too. So turned down an offer from Green Bay for their active roster to stay with the Buccaneers. So, and then Kalen DeLoach, who they signed as an undrafted free agent, kid from FSU, undersized linebacker, but Levante was undersized. Brooks was undersized. Bucs have pretty good track record with undersized linebackers, and he's already making plays. He actually had 2 sacks, one on Baker, one on Trask in the same day. And tonight, Tuesday, they had an indoor practice. He scooped up a fumble and ran it in for a touchdown. That was caused by Rashad Wisdom, one of their safeties they have there. That's an undrafted guy. So they've got good depth. They're really confident in KJ Britt. A part where I think a lot of Bucs fans were nervous during the season or the offseason early on, and we're like, maybe we need a linebacker. I think those fears have kind of, and those expectations with Britt have kind of risen, and it's not as big an area of concern, I think, as it might have been before. I think depth is probably a little bit of a concern there, true veteran depth. But as far as KJ Britt starting Levante David, I think a lot of fans, and I certainly, from someone who's watched and seen in practice and last year, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I feel like linebacker is always kind of a position where if you have good personnel department and good coaching, you can kind of find linebackers who can be Band-Aids in injury situations and kind of step in and do some work as long as you have a defensive line that can protect them a little bit. And I mean, when you got Vita Vea in front of them, I feel like that goes a long way. And I mean, even
Larry Foote too. I mean, Larry Foote was a heck of a linebacker.
Yeah.
And he's one of their coaches too. He's inside linebacker coach. Can't go wrong with him.
Yeah. Pittsburgh Steeler legend Larry Foote.
Legend.
But on this D line, so we know Vita Vea he's a monster. He's a dude. You don't find nose tackles who can rush the passer like he can all that often, and he's really impressive with it. But how do you expect Calijah Kancey to grow next to him this year and improve, kind of coming from rookie year over to year 2?
And so Vita, fun fact about Vita is he's slimmed down about 20 pounds this offseason, kept all of his strength, but he's slimmer, he's quicker, he's faster. We've all seen Vita Vea, we're like, and Vita Vea makes a tackle 15 yards down the field. Like, who? Vita Vea chased down a running back from the backfield 15 yards down the field? What? But he's gotten faster, quicker. I expect him to knock on the door of double-digit sacks, and I expect Calijah Kancey to be right there with him. Calijah Kancey missed almost all of training camp, played for a half against the Vikings, but then missed the next 4 games or 3.5 games plus the bye weeks of 4.5 weeks. Came back and set the league on fire. He had more sacks than Vita Vea, more sacks than Gerald McCoy, more sacks than Warren Sapp his rookie season with the Buccaneers than either of those guys did. He had more tackles for loss as well. He was a nightmare in the backfield. The biggest question mark for him was, you've got the run defense, 29.5 up there. I don't feel like that's indicative of his true performance. Sure, there's times where he needs to get better, and he could have got better. But I think for his size, for the negative talk about it, I feel like he performed a lot better in run defense than he got credit for last year. Also, you got to remember, when you're coming in as a rookie, it's like Marvin Harrison set the example I wish a lot of guys would take that have that status, right? Marvin said, I'm not doing all this crap. Why am I going to train for a combine and a pro day? I'm getting ready for the season. And I think Marvin Harrison is going to have a monster year because of it. Because so often these guys, their rookie year, are training for the underwear Olympics and training for a 40 time and training for all this crap that they get away from football training. And now they have to go into rookie mini camp. And now they have to work their tail off, if they're smart, in their vacation time between, mandatory mini camp and training camp, and continue to put the weight back on where they need it, that they took it off to run a faster time and all that stuff. So with a full season of a strength and off, he looks bigger, stronger. I think he's going to do much better in the run game. And with Vita Vea getting faster, quicker, it's going to be a nightmare for opponents to have to try to combat these, because he's still got a double Vita. He didn't lose that much, Yeah. And that's going to leave a lot of one-on-ones for Kancey. Logan Hall has gotten bigger. He looks faster and stronger too. I mean, he just needs to kind of realize that he's got a goal of 10 sacks. He's not going to get it, but he's got to realize that, hey, I got the dirty job. I'm the lunch and pail guy, and that's a role that Will Golston has really embraced throughout his career. Is that they drafted Logan because of his speed and his size and his strength at that position. But once they drafted Kancey and they got Vea, he just kind of needs to take a step back and not do too much, but do everything to let all the other guys go. Greg Gaines is a valuable nose tackle. Numbers dipped last year. Production really didn't. When Vita Vea was out, he held up admirably. Again, Will Golston is Will Golston. I think Mike Green, Eric Banks, haven't seen much of Eric Banks. Mike Green was on the team last year. He was that 6th defensive lineman. It's going to be interesting to see with the new kickoff rules if they keep a 6th defensive lineman or choose to go at a 6th outside linebacker or 5th inside linebacker instead. Looking at the way they're setting things up, they've got a defensive lineman on that kickoff return. Things will change in kickoff. But I don't necessarily know if with the practice squad rules too, you can elevate guys up to 3 times. So maybe you put 2 defensive linemen there, and this is where you cut a spot. But Judge Culpepper is another name I'd look at. Ernest Brown is another name I'd look at to kind of challenge Mike Green for that final spot. But yeah, defense, they look to have good depth there, versatile depth there. And Bowles is crazy. He's going to play these guys all over the place.
Man, Greg Gaines is like, you ever have those players that you just like, you just like way more than you probably should, and you can't really explain why. You just like the grit that they play with. Like Greg Gaines is that guy for me. Every time I see Greg Gaines' name, I'm like, dog.
He's awesome.
That dude rules. But like he's not great, but he's solid, and I just love the way he plays football.
Yeah, we went on the Bucks cruise. So the Buccaneers, they have a Bucks cruise they do. Out of Fort Lauderdale to Key West in the Bahamas, and we were on the Bucks cruise last year. We went to Pig Island in the Bahamas together. That was an experience that I had with Greg that I'll never forget. It's pretty fun. It's not.
What is Pig Island?
It's like one of the top 10 beaches, right? Instagram models, whatever they go there. You can swim with pigs, right? You feed with these. feral pigs on an island, but they're really not. They're in their cage and they're waiting for people to come and feed them hot dogs and stuff every day and multiple times a day. And you get in the water and they start shitting and pissing in the water with you. It's like, like look up like Pig Island, beautiful beaches, whatnot. It's not that. It's not that. It was an experience. I'd never do it again. I wish I went to Atlanta and rode jet skis with the rest of the guys on the bus. No.
Yeah, I raised pigs growing up.
Yeah.
Every time I see those pictures on the Pig Island, I'm like, there's no way. I was like, there's got to be shit everywhere.
It was an experience. They'll swim out to you and kick their
feet. Yeah, pigs are like dogs. They're just as smart as dogs. I mean, they can do it. I'm just talking about like how clean it always looks on the pictures. I'm like, yeah, they're filthy animals.
It's not that clean. It's not that clean. I should have went jet skiing with Jamel Dean, Rashad White, and them at Atlanta. So I was kind of upset about it. But it was an experience. Me and my wife had fun. It was great.
So outside of the interior, like, tell me a little bit about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, because I mean, probably based on, for no fault of his own, I didn't notice him much on the tape that I was watching. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about him as a player.
Got a hell of a name.
Yeah, I mean, you might not notice him as a pass rusher as much. He does get decent at, he's very strong. He looks like an action figure, and he can get into the backfield. Doesn't have the greatest of bend, but there's a lot of wasted opportunities there, and he'll be the first to tell you, not finishing. But I'm sure as you watch the tape too, the time the edge rushers had to get to the quarterback before the quarterback got the ball out, it was very quick. I mean, they were one of the teams that had the quarterbacks were getting the ball out against them at an alarming rate. It was like 2.6 seconds or something like that. Ball was gone. So it was difficult for them to rack up the sacks the way they wanted to last year. I think I talked to Shaq Barrett on my podcast, and he's like, you don't think we're trying to get back there? He's like, the ball's gone by the time we get back there. But I think, and even again, talk about run defense, I think this grade is not indicative of what he does. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is one of the best coverage linebackers, if not the best coverage linebacker, outside linebacker in football, especially in 3-4 defenses. But his run defense, he sets the edge very, very well. And sometimes it gets lost because he's an edge rusher. So where are the sack numbers?
As the like Sam outside linebacker in a 3-4, like you don't exactly get the same glory that you do as the weak side guy, because you're having to set that hard edge. That makes sense. And with the run defense grades, truly, I think the PFF knocks trench players a little too much on missed tackles in their grades. That's where I think it is, at least, because I'll notice a guy whose grade I think is too low, and they'll look at his missed tackle and it's a little elevated for the other guys. But in the trenches, a lot of times, if you're missing a tackle, you're forcing a guy into a run lane that's filled. So, I mean, the way that I see it, I don't usually think that, that the missed tackles in there are as bad as they might show up in the grade.
Yeah, I think PFF is great. It's one of the only tools we have to measure, but we can't. The eyes measure more, It's like old baseball scouts, I trust my eyes more than I trust the numbers sometimes, even though the numbers are extremely useful and I do rely on them a lot. But I think he's in tune for a real big season. His fifth year option declined, so he's playing on the final year of his deal. He's going to get paid next year, whether that's by the Bucs or not. I mean, for a former first-round pick, the way he sets the edge, the way he plays coverage, he's going to get at least $10 million a year from some team. If he goes out and has the season I think he's going to have, which is like, I call it the redemption or the revenge tour for JTS, because a lot of fans have kind of written him off already as well. You got to remember, this is a kid coming out after COVID year, sat out his COVID year, had one real year of production, and needed time to kind of grow in his body. He comes in his rookie season. He's played at 3 technique. He's kind of playing all out of position because they have JPP, who's like, he's got like an elbow injury and a finger injury. He's all banged up, but because he's JPP, he's starting on the outside. Yeah, multiple finger issues. Yeah. He's starting on the outside, so he didn't really get to play consistently. Then his second year, halfway through the season, Shaq Barrett goes down. So you're not going to focus on Anthony Nelson, who I think is a phenomenal player. Jack of all trades guy, not great at anything, but solid at everything. So now defense is our focus. We're going to stop one guy. We're stopping JTS. And then last year, you kind of Yaya Diaby, who we'll get into, just kind of blew up on the scene. and took over him. But JTS still played a ton of snaps. You see that, probably the second most snaps on the team behind Shaq Barrett at that position. But I think he's in tune. He's been dominant in camp so far, winning against Tristan Wirfs, winning against Luke Gedeke, and just making plays all over the field. But
Tristan Wirfs, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. So, but Yaya is
loved him in that draft. I thought, well, I loved the whole Bucs draft.
Another great name
last year, but Yaya Diaby was one of my favorite, like one of my guys in that class.
He's looked unstoppable. Mm-hmm. He's had a few reps where he's just manhandled Tristan, and that's not easy to do. He's one of these guys, and I think you'll agree with me that you liked what you saw. You saw it was a little raw. You thought it would take a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you right now, and I talked to him yesterday, that time is now. He is well above schedule, I think, from what I thought.
Player of the year?
He probably should have been the defensive rookie of the year last year over Will Anderson. He had more sacks than Will Anderson. We
like to give out one defensive player of the year award every week.
He had more sacks than Will Anderson, and he had the most tackles for loss out of any rookie last year in the NFL. I think he certainly should have been in that conversation, but again, he's not a first round pick. He doesn't get that glory there. I don't think he's defensive player of the year, but I do think he's got a strong shot at double digit sacks this year. I don't know.
Randy Gregory is definitely getting defensive player of the year then.
Yeah, I don't know if Diaby will ever be that premier number one guy. Those top echelon Bosa, those Brian Burns-esques. But whatever that notch is below it, right below it, is I think where he can land and have a really strong, successful career.
Jared Allen made a whole career out of being that guy.
Yeah, I mean that could be a good comp for him. He's going to be really good this year. And we established I'm a Patriots fan. I have no bias towards this team. Like there's nothing. I'm not like, oh, this is my guys. They're my guys, but there's no bias here towards this team at all. When I'm talking, there's going to be issues. They've got to hold up for the full season. The pressure's on now. People know who you are, Yaya. They're going to be trying to take you away now.
Sounds like this defense is going to be very, very good this year.
I think the defense has an opportunity to be very, very good. Randy Gregory should be cut any day now. He's there, quite frankly. You don't no call, no show your boss in mandatory minicamp and then no call, no show during training camp.
Randy Gregory did that, of all people?
Right, of all people. But I think right now, just kind of, a certain amount of time goes and see what they can recoup for signing bonus or something. He's almost up to $500,000 in fines, which is coincidentally what he's suing the league for. So, not a good play by him. Anthony Nelson, I mentioned, he's steady Eddie. He does everything kind of well, nothing great. He'll get you some pressures. He'll get you some turnovers. He'll play good coverage. He'll play strong defense. He's a good guy. Marquise Watts is someone to watch. He led the team in pressure percentage when he was allowed to go. He's got incredible bend. Reminds me a little bit of Shaq Barrett early on.
Where's he out of?
Charlotte. All-time leader sacker in Charlotte. So he's a guy who I think he makes this roster again. Made it last year, and I think he's going to make some noise. Jose Ramirez was a 6th round draft pick, lauded last year for his work
Eastern
in
Michigan.
Eastern Michigan, yeah.
Yeah.
Jose Ramirez is my neighbor.
Who?
Jose Ramirez is my neighbor. He owns an AC company here.
Oh, okay. Different Jose Ramirez. Very common name. But I think he's going to surprise and make the team. He was a havoc tonight in the backfield at training camp practice as well. And then Chris Braswell, who I almost forgot about because he wasn't on this list, but he's been.
So any rookies that you're looking for, they're on the bottom. They're underneath everybody.
Yeah, I see that now. Chris Braswell's looked great. He had this play yesterday at camp where he broke through the line and made Baker scramble to his right. And just as Baker was about to kind of hit out of bounds and Braswell was about to get him, Baker unleashed a beautiful ball placement throw to Chris Godwin, who contorted while he was sliding his body and reeled it in. But he's been bringing a lot of pressure. He's working with the second team. JTS and Yaya have been working with that first team. So he's getting, work on second team guys. But as pads come on and as things kind of circle, he'll get more involved with that first team unit. and get those opportunities to go against guys like Tristan and guys like Luke Gedeke. But I've been surprised. I have been pleasantly surprised from him. I wasn't as high on him during the draft process because I didn't think he had like enough bend. I thought he was kind of similar to what they had on the roster already. And maybe they're looking for a guy who's super bendy and kind of be that speed guy, not like the Penn State guy Trot Robinson, who I think is going to be a bust. But I just thought maybe they'd look for another guy. Who was the kid? One in the third round. Austin Booker. I thought maybe an Austin Booker type, something like that. Rocket, but speed, bend, get around the edge with ease. Someone like that might be what they wanted to. But so I didn't, look at Chris Braswell. Plus, obviously, he didn't play a ton at Alabama. But I think he's got a good chance to not only crack the rotation, but if JTS struggles at all, potentially overtake him at some point during the season and win that starting job from him. So,
yeah, as you're saying that, I mean, I feel like Braswell's a really strong fit for Bulls. Like, I was kind of conflicted on him as a prospect because like I liked a lot of his technique. I thought he played a lot bigger than he looked. But like you said, I was a little concerned about like the lack of bend and some of that stuff, but his versatility was really interesting. I think it's something that will play in this top Bulls defense pretty well whenever he does get a chance.
Yeah, when you turn on the tape with him last year, he was always making plays that like saved games for Alabama, like that pick six, fumble recovery. Like he's always kind of around the ball, making plays and lining up different spots too, And one thing that they really liked about him was that, he could have went anywhere would have taken him if he wanted to transfer. And he didn't shy away from the competition, bided his time, waited his turn, still was in a rotation his final year. There were Dallas Turner and other guys on that Bama team, but, led the SEC in pressures, which is not hard to do, which is not easy to do, especially as a rotational player. So I think he brings a lot to the table. They've got a really solid edge group right there. No stars, and I think that's probably one of the number one priorities next offseason. JTS probably goes somewhere else, makes his probably 12 to 15 million, and you go out there and you'll have some extra money. You sign that maybe $20 million edge rusher or trade for him and bring him in. And now paired with Diaby, paired with Braswell, paired with, some of these other young guys that you have on the roster, you've got a stacked edge room.
Well, especially when you got guys in the interior who can attack like Vea and Kancey. I feel like that takes pressure off your edge guys to be the guy. They can just be good, not great, when you have that type of interior pressure building up.
Right. Which helps the back end too, At all three levels, and this is something Bulls loves about his defense. He's got Antoine, he's got Levante, he's got Vita Vea. At all three levels, he's got elite communicators, elite leaders, and elite playmakers. And that would be the in vein of any other team in the league. Would love to have three guys like that controlling their defense at each level.
All right. Well, you want to get to some of the offense here and start it off with just, I'm gonna put it on this slide here, but Canales is gone, right? Like, how do you feel about him leaving to a division opponent, Liam Cohen coming in? What do you think that's going to look like? What changes are you expecting with that?
So I like Canales a lot. We actually kind of formed a relationship off the field, and he's a great guy. There was things that, he had to go through.
Did you read his book?
I did read his book. Yep, I did. It's a very good book. It's very respectable and very commendable for him and his wife to be as open as they were about something like that. And if you've ever gone through that, had those issues, or know someone who has had those issues, I highly recommend it. It's eye-opening, and it kind of makes you take a look inside about your marriage and what you're really seeking and what you really want for it. But it
was one of those stories that was like, national media probably would have never even noticed it, brought it up, and then you get a head coaching job, and it's like,
and people want to make fun of it and this and that, but kudos to them. Everyone copes in their own way and gets over it. And if they can help people with their story, absolutely more power to them. And hopefully it has helped people. Hopefully it will continue to help people. But great guy, positive guy. But there are things he had to go through, right? Like, he's first-time play caller. And there are some struggles and growing pains there. First time running an offense, you kind of look, Pete Carroll kind of he's been there for 12 years. He brought in this guy. He brought in Shane Waldron. He brought in, continued to bring in guys and didn't elevate him, which led to his experience. But also there was some inexperience there, and that kind of showed through last year. And you finally started to see everything kind of get going towards the end of the season. The run game started getting better. The passing game started getting better. The play calling started getting better. So I think those experiences will help him in Carolina. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in football. I think Bryce Young is going to have.
No, they won't be the worst team in football.
No, I think Bryce Young will definitely have a bounce back season where, Stroud has already got the leg up, right? But I don't think it's going to be as large as what people are talking about this rookie season. I think he'll bounce back. But with Liam coming in, it's, Canales was running a branch of the McVay tree, right? It was a branch off a branch. McVay had Shane Waldron, who went to Seattle, where Dave Canales was, and Dave brought Shane Waldron's offense with a mix of Schottenheimer and Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevel. And this is a root. Like, they cut a root off the stem. Like, this was McVay's offensive coordinator. Now he's got some own things that he's going to do, and obviously spent time in Kentucky as well, but has experience calling plays. He has experience in running the offense as a coordinator. He has experience getting all of his guys, his coaches and stuff, to teach the way he wants them to teach and get his message across, and brought some of those guys like a Carberry with him, the offensive line coach and stuff. So, going into it, they're already at an advantage. And I think one of the things I talked to him on the podcast, and I asked him, like, you guys installed a lot. You talked to some of these rookies and even Sterling Shepard, and their heads were spinning when they were getting the playbook and the installs, and Mayfield and Rachaad White were like, it's tough, because they're front loading so much stuff, but it helps them when they come back in and they get to feel more comfortable about what's going on. And Baker's going to have so many different cans and opportunities to check into different things. And again, it's a very similar offense. Terminology is different, but a lot of motion, a lot of movement at the snap, orbit motions. There's going to be a ton of different things that they didn't do last year that they're going to incorporate this year. And I think the biggest thing is when you're going from like a power duo gap running scheme to a zone, wide zone, mid zone, it's kind of night and day a little bit there. There's different aspects of that. And this Bucs team was kind of like thrown into, okay, this is what we're learning now after you were doing some of these. And it took them a while to gel. And even when I talked to Dave, he said, when we taught this in Seattle, when Shane came in, it took about a half a season for the offensive line, the running back, everyone to kind of get on the same page on what we want to do the run game. So it's not that learning curve for them. You look at Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich offense was very outdated. And now they're more in this modern offense that half the league is running. They have a year in it, and now they're kind of building up what they were installed last year, different terminology, different plays, different philosophies. And one thing I like about Cohen is, for him, at the root of his philosophy is players over plays. He's not going to overthink stuff. Okay, what does this situation call for? Well, if we do this, no. Get the ball to Mike Evans. What are we doing? Third down? Hit Chris Godwin on a crosser on the outside. Like, that's what this guy does.
Just call the old man's L play. It's always a good play.
Right. Just, go to the Buick, bro. Like,
yeah.
So I think that's the thing. And the guys have really bought in. They like Canales a lot, but the guys are really excited. They really bought in to what he's doing here. And I think you're going to see an improvement in this offense, especially with Baker kind of coming in and having – he's always going to have a chip on his shoulder. He'll find a way. You guys watched him at Texas Tech. He'll find a way to put a chip on there, but having the ability to just kind of sit back and not worry about, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm a career backup. He's got a contract. He's got a kid. He's got something extra to play for, which always drives you and motivates you. And I think, with him at the helm, it's going to be – the national media will never give the Bucs love. We talked about Levante David. We'll talk about Mike Evans here soon. Talk about some of these other guys. They're back at it again this year, predicting them to not do well. and I think they're going to have egg all over their face all again.
Yeah, I
Jay,
think Baker gets.
What did we
so
say
much-
about Baker going into last year?
Oh yeah, never bet against the Baker scoring ever. I think Baker gets some of the most disrespect in the history of the league. We're talking about a man who's won a playoff game for the Browns and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The
And
Browns,
the list of
too, not to interrupt you, but the Browns too. Remember, they were a Chad Henne slide away from going to the AFC Championship game. If that defense could have stopped Chad Henne on that, what was it, 4th down conversion, they're going to the AFC Championship game. And Baker's now looked at this different quarterback, and maybe he doesn't get hurt the next year, you know.
Yeah.
And now he's a franchise
just-
guy in Cleveland. Like so many things.
how many people in the history of the league have won a playoff game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Not a very long list. And then you look at the same for this version of the Cleveland Browns. Not the 40s Browns, not the Browns that are in Baltimore, but this actual Cleveland Browns. How many quarterbacks have won a playoff game there? He's done it both places. 2 of the league's pariahs, and still doesn't get any respect.
Before Baker
after
came,
Tom Brady, I don't know if you can call the Bucs the league
before
pariah
Brady
anymore,
came,
Historically, though.
Before Brady came,
historically.
the Buccaneers had the lowest winning percentage of all 4
Mhm.
major sports in America. The lowest winning percentage. Tom Brady changed that over the course of 3 years, and Baker just carried it on last year.
This is usually where I'd say a joke about the Lions, but I can't use it anymore.
Can't. They're gonna crush-
The Lions ended the joke. It's over.
Who are you picking a fight, lion or a bear?
Well, I'm biased.
Is Dan
I'll
Campbell
go
the
with
Lion?
I'm picking a tiger over both of them, so it's all good. It'd be really cool looking like
A
Marshall.
lion, a tiger, a bear, Dan Campbell?
Dan Campbell's gonna bite the kneecaps. It's over.
All right, let's get to some of these weapons here. So, in the running back room, how do you expect Rachaad White to be the bell cow here this year, or is Bucky Irving gonna eat into those, or even a guy like Chase Edmonds or Sean Tucker?
Bucky's going to eat into it. I think Chase will be like that third down back type role. He's kind of sidelined right now. But one thing, first day of camp, I looked at, you go on my my breakdown, and he impressed like crazy. Like his burst, and he was banged up last year, but when he was healthy, Chase Edmonds got this burst where he's just boom gone for 15 yards, and it's like, where did that come from? And his pass protection is probably the strongest on the team as well. Rachaad White's very good in pass protection, and Bucky's kind of he's getting good at it. But pads come on, so that's going to determine how much he plays. Sean Tucker was not good at it last year. That's why he was the RB2 coming in based on skill, and quickly RB inactive based on pass protection. But Chase had this play where Antoine was coming around the end, and KJ Britt was coming up the middle, and Baker had no time to get rid of the ball. And would have been decimated if it was a real game, if it wasn't for Chase picking up the pass protection. But Rachaad's going to be the guy. I mean, he really came on towards the end of the year, finished 10 yards shy of 1,000 yards. I think was 4th in the league for running back and all-purpose yards. And towards the end of the season, he had more. It was him and Christian McCaffrey would outdo each other every week. The last 7 or 8 games of the season.
That's good company.
Yeah, I mean, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball, he's good at pass blocking. He's good in space. You get the ball in his hand in space, especially as a receiver. For him, they just need a little more violence out of his running style, and that's something that Cohen has challenged him to do, is just kind of be a more violent runner. Don't be so patient. One of the guys he's looked up to is Le'Veon Bell, and everyone wants to dance like Le'Veon Bell, but nobody can. So, kind of you see hole, hit hole, boom, go, kind of lower your shoulder, take that contact and go. But, Bucky Irving had the second most missed tackles in NCAA last year. And he's a guy who is slippery when wet. We haven't really been able to
not believe his athletic testing. I was like, that is not the tape. That is just
played,
not the tape.
You know what?
I like Bucky Irving a lot, yeah.
You take Bucky Irving and Braylon Allen and switch their tape up.
Yeah.
That's how they should be playing. Braylon Allen's this big back, and he's getting tackled, just like, not running over, and Bucky Irving's out here making people break their ankles, multiple people on a play. But he's going to get some run for sure. It's tough to kind of gauge his special talent, which is making missed tackles when you're not practicing that. It can't, but he can catch, he can run, and he'll definitely have a role in this offense too. But this is still Rachaad White's backfield, and he's gonna. I think he goes out there and cements himself as one of the top, young running backs in the league this year. Over 1,000 yards, probably around 500 to 600 yards receiving, 10 total touchdowns. 50, 60 receptions. Wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for me. 1,300 yards rushing on the ground. I think the run game is going to be much better this year with the pieces they brought in, and a Graham Barton. We'll talk about that. Cody Mauch in his second year. The run game, the left guard, Trishan with a full year at left tackle and stuff like that. So I think Rachaad White is if you're playing fantasy, he's a guy that might get passed on by people. He's there in the third round. Scoop him up without hesitation.
Third round.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he's gonna get the touches you're saying, I buy it. Like, it's hard to find a back with that reliable touch.
League, and he's there on the turnaround, and you're at pick 20. What is it? 12 team 23. I take him at 23 on the turnaround before the other guy can get him at 24 and 25.
That's Jahmyr Gibbs territory. So looking at this wide receivers room, can we just take a moment of silence for Mike Evans' greatness?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. He is so phenomenal. He has carried quarterbacks all the way from college up until now.
Leave Mike Glennon out of this.
Do what?
Leave Mike Glennon out of this.
That was more of a shot at Johnny. But we're talking about a dude.
Did the Bears pay Mike Glennon a bunch of money?
Oh yeah. They paid him like $18 million or something.
They love him some Mike Glennon.
Crazy.
I hope.
Well, luckily
Mike
they drafted
Evans got a nice gift from Mike Glennon after that.
Luckily they drafted Mitchell Trubisky, and all their quarterback woes went away.
Wait, that was before or after Pat? Oh, before.
Same time.
Same draft, right? Sorry, we're picking up enough. Go ahead.
No, that's what a lot of people don't. A lot of people forget that Mitch Trubisky and Patrick Mahomes were in the same draft, and then Pat Mahomes went 7 picks after. It's crazy that never gets talked about.
Yeah. You boys clearly never watched a primetime Bears game, because it's all that's talked about.
I didn't know the Bears played primetime games.
Oh,
they don't.
That's fine.
Hopefully soon.
So Mike Evans,
Mike Evans,
10 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. And the thing that's more impressive about Mike now is when he came in, he joked around. The 240-pound rookie wide receiver, fat little guy, and now he's learned from Tom, but also learned throughout, his own trainers and staff is about taking care of your body and longevity. And that's a huge part of what he does and how he maintains his regimen and off-season workout. And he looks in better shape. I mean, I feel like I say it every last 3 years. He looks better shape each year. But, it's allowing him to do more. He's playing more in the slot. He's getting in motion more. He's still playing that, quintessential X position for him on the outside. But, there's so much that he can do. And he's just kind of each year kind of stepping up his game a little bit more and more. Tied the league for the league lead in touchdowns. He gets it last year. He gets 1,000 yards this year. He ties Jerry Rice for the most
consecutive seasons
of 1,000 yards. And
double-digit touchdowns 3 of the last 4 years is freaking ludicrous. That is.
He's getting drafted the 4th, 5th round in fantasy. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah. I took him in every league. I took him in every league last year. Yeah, it was
except for
Mike Evans
and bunker games, but the games that he does go off, he goes off. But I mean,
he's 8 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown almost every week.
It's perfect, But I think. And you mentioned the quarterbacks he did it with. I think Mike's in for another good season. So far, the chemistry has been right there with him and Baker. And Baker, I don't know if we moved on from Baker, but I'm going to bring it back to him. His ball
We never move on from Baker.
His ball placement so far has been phenomenal. There's been some throws where I mentioned the one to Chris Godwin early on. There was a throw with Zion McCollum was in perfect coverage. Like you can't get better coverage than that. And Baker just threw it right where Mike can get it perfectly placed for him to pick up a first down on a third down. He's had a couple, they're all going to have a couple. He had an Hail Mary interception, if you count those on 2-minute drill, with time running out. I don't count stuff like that, but for the most part, hitting Trey Palmer and stride, who we'll talk about in a minute. But I think Baker, and you just kind of see right here, we talked about this, never had 2 strong seasons in a row. I think that's going to change. You look at how many head coaches he's had, how many offensive coordinators he had. Look at what he came into with the Browns. When they finally
I don't think that's as much as a career trend as just look at the situational things that happen. Like it was never like, oh, Baker's good, now he sucks. It was like, oh, new head coach. Oh, Freddie from the kitchen.
Jackson. Now Hugh Jackson's fired. Now Greg Williams is fired. Now Freddie Kitchens. Now Freddie Kitchens gone. Kevin Stefanski's in. Oh wow, Baker. This is what Baker could look like. Wow, 2020. They're going to the playoffs. They're they're about.
Let's go get Deshaun Watson now.
Right, and then he gets injured and plays through injuries because he's a team first guy when he probably should have shut it down. And then let's get Deshaun Watson. Let's trade him to Carolina where it's not a scheme fit at all. We'll partner him with Sam Darnold, and then he goes to gets cut, goes to LA. LA
plays on 48 hours notice.
Comes to Tampa last year.
Across the country in LA.
Brings him 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes away from the NFC Championship game in his first year on a $4 million contract. I think
it beats the previous year's Super Bowl appearers.
Right. So I think the narrative around Baker, I think people are starting to kind of, I don't know. He's a guy that, people like to kind of dog on. Remember the whole, what is it? Hat backwards in the interview and Colin Cowherd.
Colin Cowherd being a douche.
But, I think for Baker, I've seen someone who's been very humbled by this experience, someone who hasn't lost his swagger at all by it, but understands that, hey, I had it all. I had it by the balls here. Heisman Trophy winner, first number 1 overall pick, coming in the league, the commercials, the deals, the Baker's house, this. And I saw that get taken away from
Baker was just never... Like he was just every commercial. It's just Baker Mayfield.
Right. And I found out how quickly all that can get taken away from me. And I think now, especially having a baby, again, that puts things into
seeing aliens on his way home from dinner.
Yeah, seeing aliens, that puts stuff into perspective. And I think this Baker has matured. I think
he's no longer a Texas resident. He moved to Florida full time.
That's true as well. So he's got some Florida man in him now.
A Baker scorn mixed with Florida man energy might be talking MVP.
Yeah, I've seen gators in the back pool outside a training facility. It would not surprise me if he went back there and wrestled one. So I don't know, but no, I think
I want my quarterback
around Baker. I think the narrative around Baker will change this year after he has another successful season, and we can kind of move on from that 2 years, never not consistent, inconsistent, stuff like that. Yeah. But so, Chris Godwin. Holy shit, it's a cat.
It's a cat. Godwin. Go ahead.
Chris Godwin's going to be a big part of that too. And, talking to Liam Cohen, it's not just Mike. Mike has been there, but it's allowed Chris to do so well. The only tandem that's had 3 consecutive years of 1,000 yards receiving. And I think Godwin, played the outside last year a little bit, and it kind of threw him out of whack. He's better suited in the slot. And one thing that Cohen's going to do is have him more in that slot position and call it his role Cooper Kupp-esque. And, Godwin was dealing with a torn ACL, kind of recovered, the year prior. And last year there were moments where you looked at him and were like, separation just isn't there, but it started to come towards the end of the season. And now you kind of really see it. He's a clutch go-to guy on third down. And I think the combination between Evans and Godwin is really going to show up this season with another year with Baker and the chemistry and continuity.
Yeah, and then so behind those two guys, I feel like you got Godwin, you got Evans on the field. You just feel good about that combo you have there. But Godwin has really excelled in the slot. But to be in the slot, you're typically talking 11 personnel. So who's the other outside guy here? Is it Trey Palmer, or are we seeing some competition for that spot? And where does Jalen McMillan fit in?
So yeah, that's the competition that's going on right now. And the fun thing about that is I talked to Cohen, and from my opinion prior to speaking with him, I didn't think it was going to be a true, you'll have your depth chart number 3, but I didn't think it was going to be a true number 3 because both of them offer different things that can help you win games. Trey Palmer's got that incredible speed, and can beat guys deep. So if you're playing a team that does heavy man coverage, maybe it's Trey Palmer you want out there to kind of draw these guys off, maybe try some deep shots, get some, make them respect the deep ball with Trey Palmer. Of course, Mike Evans can do it too, but Mike Evans doesn't have the game-changing speed that Trey Palmer does. We saw that in the Eagles game last year. And then with Jalen McMillan, he's a very polished receiver product. And everyone you talk to at camp, receivers, defensive backs, they all say the same thing. He's like a veteran out there. He's very savvy. He kind of just knows what to do. He's in the right place at the right time, specifically when they're playing zone. Like, he finds the spots in zone and knows where to sit down in them. And he's been one of Baker's go-to targets. And that's nothing against Trey Palmer. He just makes it very easy to find the ball. He's got strong hands. He had another touchdown tonight in practice. He's been just kind of been a touchdown machine so far, and it's easy to get hyped on him. One of the biggest things that kind of really need to see when they do the joint practices and in preseason is he's had troubles getting off the jam. So, when they get a little bit more physical against another team, that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think with Palmer and McMillan, you're going to have a really fantastic duo there. And then behind them, Devin Tompkins no longer on the team. He's on with Carolina. When
did that happen?
Well, there was allegations from his ex-wife about abuse, and he got injured. The Bucs waived him with an injury, and then he got injury settlement, got cleared, and he signed with Carolina back with. But
full disclosure with these graphics, I make them a month and a half ago.
Yeah, don't worry.
We're doing these each week, so sometimes stuff falls through the cracks there.
No worries at all. So Sterling Shepard and Raheem Jarrett right there. They're in that battle for that 5th, 6th spot. Ryan Miller has actually looked really well. He's got some time run with the ones as well. So he's a name that I would kind of look at as a dark horse. And then another dark horse guy is Cameron Johnson. He's out of Barton College, little Barton College, and undrafted free agent this year. But he's bigger than Tompkins, slightly. But he's fast, he's quick, he's in and out. He looks like probably a special teams return type guy. So it kind of comes down to those 4 for those last 2 spots. Shepard's looked really well, kind of having that resurgence, playing with Baker again from their time in Oklahoma, has scored touchdowns in almost every practice after the first practice.
I feel like Sterling Shepard has never really got a very good opportunity in the NFL, being on the Giants and then injuries and everything else. Like, I think he can definitely carve out a spot. It's hard with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans on your team, but
right.
I think he still has a lot left in him, and I'm excited to see what he can do in this offense if he gets looks. But it's a loaded room, so
right. And he's at times he's looked like the best, the 3rd best receiver on the roster. But it also comes down to you're not moving off Palmer, you're not moving off Palmer or McMillan. So that 5th, 6th spot, you got to play special teams. Is he going to play special teams with this new kickoff rule? Do you need a wide receiver? Can you use a different position there? That's going to be something to watch. I think he's in a competition. Him, Sterling Shepard, Raheem Jarrett, Ryan Miller, Cam Johnson are all in that competition for that final spot. And then he moved to tight end. And again, it's one of these things where he just wants love. It's one of these things where K-Dotton played 98% of the snaps last year. That can't happen again. Like, you can't have your guy playing all the snaps. So someone needs to step up from that position group there. Payne Durham is the likeliest guy to take that step up in his 2nd year. Drafted him out of 5th round in Purdue, was a touchdown machine there. I think he had like 24 touchdowns over his course of his career, maybe 25, in fact. But Cade,
I mean, these names all scream Hall of Fame tight end. Cade Otton, Kokef, Payne Durham especially, but then Devin Culp too. Like that, David Wells. I just think about the Yankees pitcher, but like Devin Culp too. They're all great tight end names.
If you Google Payne Durham and look at the images, there's a picture of him. I don't know if you guys are into wrestling at all, but he looks like Karrion Kross. It's he's got like it's completely badass picture of him. He's got.
I try to watch the pay-per-views at least.
It's really good. It's a really good. But I think Cade Otton is ready to take that ascent into top 15 tier. I think he's right outside right now. His blocking really came along towards the end of the season. Finished just under 500 yards, just under 50 receptions, 4 touchdowns last year. I think he's a guy who's getting ready to take that next step. He's not super flashy, but he makes the tough catches, makes the hard grabs, and does everything right. Keith is more of a blocking specialist. He's in a battle right now with a guy like Devin Culp, who's more of that move tight end, fastest tight end in the combine. Showed that speed off yesterday at practice where he took a seam, just free release. Can't give this guy a free release. I tell you, he's going to beat you every time. Took the route down the seam and was boom, gone for the touchdown. So I think they're kind of in a battle. David Wells, de facto number 2, quickly fell out of favor and onto the practice squad last year. He's kind of competing for that spot. And, Keith is an interesting guy because he's more that blocking specialist, does really well on special teams. Coincidentally enough, the first 2 passes of 2023 were to Keith, both incomplete passes, but he did catch a touchdown. He had 1 catch for a touchdown last season. So it's like they're going to more of these 3 sets, as you mentioned. There's not as many 2 tight end sets. There still will be some, but can he warrant a roster spot on someone who's adequate blocker and special teamer? Or do you want someone who can kind of give you a different element on offense than Devin Culp? So I think that's going to be the competition there. Keith does not get picked up, I think. So I don't think he comes back to the practice squad. Someone will pick him up for his special teams at least and blocking and kind of develop him. But it should be a solid offensive skill position group led by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The depth here is what's scary. You talk about the depth on the defensive side. We went in depth on it. In depth here is no one. Cade Otton gets injured. You're dealing with Payne Durham. Like, good luck. I like Payne. I think he's got a high chance to make an impact year 2, but not as a starter. Chris Godwin, I think you can find replacement snaps for. Mike Evans, forget about it. Like, who's going to replace Mike? Nobody. Right. On the roster, I should say. Can Bucky take over a full load his rookie year if Rachaad White goes down? Especially Chase Edmonds was injured a lot last year, already injured now. Sean Tucker, don't know what you're getting. I think the best depth you have is either A, behind Chris Godwin, because I think Trey Palmer – I think you can trot out Mike Evans, Trey Palmer, and Jalen McMillan and be fine. Or it's Kyle Trask, to be honest with you. I think that's their best depth is behind Godwin and behind Trask. I mean, Baker, because I think Trask can give you meaningful game.
You like Kyle Trask?
I don't love him, but I think if you need
as far
him
as
for
backup
4
quarterbacks
games,
go,
if you need him for 4 games, I think you can get by with 4 games and go 2-2 with him.
I think that's fair.
I think if you lose Chris Godwin with Trey
I feel
Palmer,
like that's about as much as you could ask for out of a backup quarterback. So
right, I think if you lose Chris Godwin and for 4 games you got Trey Palmer and Jalen McMillan, you can go 3-1 with them. They're not obviously controlling the ball, but I think you can get by with those guys. If you lose Mike Evans, like, good luck. 0-4.
Yeah, I swear to God though, Cade Otton, I would have thought he was an all-pro because every time I would turn on a Bucs game to watch Mike Evans or to see Rachaad White or see what's going on, it was always just the Cade Otton show, and it just drove me crazy.
Yeah, he's a good young tight end. He's certainly good. Like I said, he's like 16, 17 maybe right now. Yeah. There's not a lot of good tight ends in the league. I mean,
it's not obviously as a Bears fan. This is like Cole Kmet was a top maybe 16 tight end his second year, like top 20 for sure, but that 15 territory was questionable. But it's like it took 3 to 4 years for him to enter that kind of top 10 territory.
And rarely
like
guys come out
a similar football player.
I mean,
tight end's one of those slow developing positions too. I mean,
right.
outside of like your Sam
linebacker.
Laportas, but it's like most of the time it takes guys a while.
I mean, you name the top 5 tight ends, and it's like, all right, you got Kittle, you got Andrews, you got Kelsey,
Jason Ferguson.
Is it Jason? Like then it gets crazy there. You got those 3. Is Hopkins in there? Is Laporta in there? Is Ferguson in there? Do you put a guy like Komet in? Like, who goes? Evan Ingram, is he in there? Dalton Schultz. Dalton.
It's so offense specific. Like, what do you want your tight end to do? Is going to play a big factor in that.
So you've got 3 strong. Darren Waller was in there before he sucked last year.
The rapper.
The rapper, Darren Waller, yeah. But no, I mean, you look at, tight end is a position where you've got 4 or 5 top guys in the league at a time, and the rest of them are all either good to mediocre to, whatever. So I think he's making his way into that good category where
OJ Howard.
What could have been if it wasn't for that Achilles and a bad offense that didn't know how to utilize him properly.
All right. Well, let's get a little bit to these blockers before we finish the offense out. And I mean, starting out, you talked a little bit about Tristan Wirfs already, a guy who, I don't think he made All-Pro last year. Maybe he was second team, but like a guy who was an All-Pro caliber player on either side of the line, like left tackle, right tackle. He proved last year he can play both sides
hit the open market?
well.
No, he's going to get locked up. He's going to reset the market. Probably around $29 million a year. I think probably around 80-something guaranteed.
Are you breaking news right now?
I'm not breaking news, but it's going to happen any day now. There's some hangups.
Who gets signed first, Tristan Wirfs or CeeDee Lamb?
Tristan Wirfs.
Oh,
CD.
My
boy Ricky's on CD already.
I think Tristan Wirfs gets something done by, let's say they got tomorrow off, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday practice, Sunday they have off, Monday they start Cincinnati week. I think something's done by Monday morning with Tristan Wirfs.
Okay.
I think the hang up here is 4 to 5. 4 to 5, how much is guaranteed? We know it's going to be somewhere between 29 and 30 because he's resetting the market. But I'm sure Tristan, or at least his agents, would like a 4-year deal so he can test the market again at 29 years old, where the team is probably want 5 years to stretch out the cap hit a little bit here. And I'm sure it's kind of the guaranteed, what's guaranteed. But no, Tristan made that switch from right tackle to left tackle. Had some rough spots last season, but still one of the best tackles in the league, top 3 tackles in the league. I don't understand where all this Penei Sewell love is coming from. Very good tackle.
Phenomenal.
Very good tackle. But if Tristan Wirfs was still at right tackle last year and wasn't forced to move to left tackle, it would be Tristan Wirfs over Penei Sewell. That's how good Tristan Wirfs was at right tackle. Not allowing.
I'll agree to disagree on that one, but
you think Penei Sewell's better than Tristan Wirfs?
Yes.
You do.
For the offense they run, I definitely think so, because I think he is such a difference maker as a run blocker, and that offense is all about it is so heavily based on his ability to just destroy people in the run game.
I don't know. I don't think the offensive line in Detroit gets better if you add Tristan Wirfs and replace Penei Sewell, to where I think it gets worse. And if you did the same thing with Tampa and moved Penei Sewell to Tampa and took Tristan Wirfs out of the equation, I think it stays at the same. I love Tristan Wirfs, but I think Penei Sewell's a top 5 player in the league right now.
I think Tristan Wirfs is just as dominant. I think there was some hiccups moving to left tackle, but he was still a dominant player.
Oh yeah, he's phenomenal.
And if he was
I'm not going to argue about greatness.
No, but if he was at right tackle still, I think he would be better.
To me, I think Wirfs is a better pass protector than Sewell, but I just think Sewell is so important to that rushing offense in Detroit and such a key man there.
I'm trying to find the stats there since they came in. Tristan Wirfs was like the highest number. He was ranked the number 2 tackle ahead of Penei Sewell by PFF. Of course, Trent Williams leads the way there. No shocker. But there was a stat that came out.
Trent Williams getting old.
He's getting old, but he's still phenomenal.
Yeah.
Still so phenomenal. But other there, we're splitting hairs. They're both incredible tackles. I just think
I'd say they're both top 3 tackles in the NFL. So like it's
right.
moot.
I think Tristan would have got the All-Pro nod, would have got that kind of consideration, would have been a Pro Bowl backup or alternate rather, had he stayed at right tackle, just my opinion. But speaking of right tackle, the guy they have at right tackle, Luke Gedeke, played there at college, has shorter arms than most people would desire at the position, played left guard his rookie year. They tried to move him over there, moved him back to right tackle last year, quietly finished as a top 25 tackle in the league, regardless of size, and has continued to got better throughout this offseason, added some muscle, just kind of understands the position now. Locked up your boy Aiden Hutchinson in that first meeting between Detroit, kind of put him in check there in the second meeting as well.
What is Aiden Hutchinson, our boy?
You know,
Defensive Player of the Year.
Even you know what I'm saying. So,
dude learned how to run block last year, man, and maybe that was just the move to tackle. But Matt, that run blocking as a rookie was not pretty. I was very impressed by the growth that he had there last year. Like he really stepped up.
Just in school, you're screwed. Like just straight up. Like he's a swing tackle, but he's been getting eaten alive. And maybe it's just Yaya's so good because he's eaten Tristan a few times. But like he's just been getting eaten alive. They got another couple guys there. Brandon Walton, who's kind of like their ultimate utility man there. He can play guard, center, tackle. He's been playing some right, left tackle, and he's done pretty well this offseason. But you move to the interior, and that's where there's some fun stuff going on there. Cody Mock comes into year 2 at right guard after playing.
Cody Mock the
North Dakota State?
North Dakota.
No, I know who he is. If you Google if you look up offensive lineman in the dictionary, can it just be a picture of Cody Mock?
Long red hair, yeah, that's Cody Mock. Yeah,
like he should just be like the poster for like offensive line.
Yeah, so
like, there's nobody
him and Quinn Miners back to back.
Yeah, Quinn Miners. I loved Quinn Miners coming out.
Just the two of them together.
Instead, they could have been on the same line.
Guard, they're the definition.
Yeah, so I think Cody, he's gotten bigger, stronger. Again, I talked about it, specifically with offensive, defensive line. I think that experience in an off-season program where you're kind of getting all the workouts and the nutrition and all that stuff and really focusing on your craft, I think it's going to help him tremendously. He struggled at times mightily, but one thing that always stood out to him was his recovery. He had a great recovery when you watched the film. You know, if he got beat, it wasn't – some of the plays he got beat on that allowed sacks too was kind of Baker kind of baking himself into a sack, which he can do at times.
Baker.
Yeah,
well, usually when I saw him get beat, it was a strength issue, and and you knew coming into last year he needed to beef up, and it wasn't going to happen until his first off season.
Right, and I think him working with Gedeke too, they understand. Okay, this is where I can give up a little bit. This is where he's going to give it. And this is so. I think that's really going to be instrumental for them. You kind of look at Robert Hainsey's most likely the backup center. There's a competition for left guard between Ben Bredesen and Sua Opeta. Hainsey's not taking part of that at all. So it kind of, I think, reserves him to most likely the backup center because they drafted Graham Barton in the first round. He's likely to win that job. They've been alternating snaps throughout camp. One series on 11-11 will be one of them. Next will be them. But I talked to Cohen, and Cohen wants to have this squared out by Cincy week, which is next, not this week coming up. Well, this is this week coming up. So we've got about 3 more padded practices to go to kind of figure out who they want to start working in that more consistently with those ones. And I think that's going to be Graham Barton. You drafted him high. His athleticism off the charts. He's big, which is what they want to get bigger in the up the middle so they can have more success in the run game, pass blocking. So that's going to put Hainsey pigeonholed because, backup center is valuable. Bucs learned that the hard way with Jensen going down. Bredesen and Opeta have been interesting. They've been rotating the same way, but I think Bredesen has the upper hand just because he's performed better in zone. And Opeta's comes from more of like that power scheme, and they really like Bredesen's ability to get out in front and in pulls and stuff like that. But ultimately, I kind of put the formidable, who's gonna be, what's gonna push the one over the edge, and Cohen said it's gonna whoever the better run blocker is, and so far it's kind of hard. We're only 2 days in practice with pads. It's kind of hard to pin who that's gonna be, but they'll continue to split until something happens. Unfortunately, actually, Opeta got injured in tonight's practice. Looked like a knee injury. Not really sure what it is. I don't know if we have an update. I've been doing this podcast, but once we have an update, we'll know from there. But if it's any expected amount of time missed, it's going to give Bredesen the leg up, and he'll probably secure that competition. I think he will anyways, but gives him great depth, with Hainsey and Opeta there all along the line with a guy like Brandon Walton, who I mentioned as well, and Elijah Klein, who 6th round pick out of UTEP. He was like a 7th-year senior. But man, this kid is impressive. I tell you, he didn't test well, but one of the first thing I noticed about him at rookie minicamp, and I brought this up to Cohen, was his get off. Like, he was keeping up with Graham Barton, who tested as the most athletic center to ever come out of the combine since like 1979 when they started doing the testing. And if you switch the Barton to guard, it's the second best, So he's keeping up with him right away. And I mentioned that to Cohen. It's like, that's one of the things that our coaches kind of looked at first when we got him in here, was his get off is quicker than I thought. And he just packs a powerful punch. He's got a very strong understanding of all run schemes. And he actually taught himself the UTEP playbook as a freshman within 2 days in his dorm room with flashcards, and taught himself zone blocking schemes. So he's one of these guys who it's going to be interesting to see how they construct the roster. But I could easily see him making it over somebody initially, because they don't want to get him, they don't want to put him out to waivers. And then kind of doing the swap and bait, maybe put him on the practice squad, or maybe he stays on the active roster. And they just decide to keep 10 linemen because he's got a bright future and potentially could be that left guard of the future once Bredesen and Opeta move on and Hainsey move on next year. So the line looks like there's some bright spots. Obviously, the tackles, you're good. The interior, there's some question marks. I think you feel comfortable with Cody Mock going into his second season. Graham Barton is a rookie, but I mean, as projections go, he should be pretty good. And then, you're never going to have all pros all across the line. I think left guard will be the weakest spot on the team. But they should be able to get things going. But, I think there's more optimism for the defense than the offense, and certainly more depth there other than that interior offensive line. You get an injury to Gedeke or Wirfs, you're screwed. The season's gone.
Now, say that you get an injury to Cody Mock. Do you foresee a situation where Barton kicks over to guard and Hainsey goes in at center?
So in my opinion, personal opinion, I think the best combination of the line is Barton at left guard, to be honest with you, and Hainsey at center. They want to get bigger at center. That's where they would really like to get bigger at center. But for me, I think if you're looking for the best 5, it's Barton at left guard, Hainsey at center, Cody at right guard. But yeah, they've got some guys who have versatility that they can move guys around, and if they need to move, Barton over to right guard, if they need to move Barton over to left guard and Hainsey back at center, or remember Ben Bredesen played a majority of the season last year at center. They have that opportunity as well. Brandon Walton is that ultimate utility man who can play along across the line and at tackle guard and has taken snaps at center. So that interior has a lot of flexibility, I think, in there if someone gets injured or something's just not working and they need to make a switch. They've got a lot of versatility there. Outside, it's the Mike Evans, it's the Rashad White situation on offense. There's just no. And School's played good snaps in the league for San Francisco. Similar style, run team and pass blocking scheme. But I mean, you lose Tristan or Gedeke for a long period of time, and you're starting to lose some games at that point because of that.
Yeah. Now, ultimately, like, big picture for this team, we got these odds down the lower left-hand corner. What do you think there's value in within these bets? The over is really low here. Is that 4 odds?
Hammer that over.
Yeah.
How many games are we winning?
run to your bookie and hammer the over right now. You're gonna get paid. What'd you say?
How many games were we winning on this team?
You know, it's something I'm not completely comfortable giving a win-loss. I need to see a little bit more. I need to see some preseason stuff like that.
Well, you said a hammer over 7.5, so at least 8.
Over 7.5. So I don't think they lose. I think their floor is probably 9.
9 wins.
9
Floor.
wins schedule. I think 9 wins. 8 to 9 wins. I think they definitely hit the over. I just see they've got some tough opponents, but they've got some very winnable games. This is like the epitome of a team. I feel like. Now I was around.
So you don't have a whole lot of respect for this division. I'm assuming.
I mean, Carolina, I think, is 2 wins. Carolina's 2 wins. Show me what
Carolina wasn't going to be the worst team in the league. You think there's going to be a worse team than 2 wins?
No, I think Carolina is going to be 2 easy wins.
2 wins for Tampa.
Yeah, okay. I don't see.
You were saying 2 wins as a team.
No. I don't see where the Saints got better. In fact, I see spots where they got worse. They just lost Ryan Ramczyk for the year. Alvin Kamara is still not reporting, and he hasn't been Alvin Kamara, quite frankly, for a couple seasons now.
But Derek Carr.
And they got Derek Carr, right? And they don't have Jameis to bail him out. So, I don't see a situation where they've gotten better. Falcons are the darling right now.
Dirty Birds.
Because they got Kirk Cousins, but that defense still has issues. There's still some issues on the offensive line. While they've got some outstanding players, their weaknesses are their weaknesses. We got to see how they utilize their skill position players. Obviously, they got Drake London. They've got Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. They made some other additions there, but the defense still kind of...
They sure do love their first-round picks.
Right. Gives me some pause here. Michael Penix Jr., who knows? He could be doing some Wildcat stuff. You never know. And then I look at some...
He's like 5 years away from retirement, so they got to get him in there pretty quick.
Right. You got the Giants on there. You got the Commanders on there. Yeah, sure. You've got some tough teams as well, like the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Lions, the Ravens. You're playing the Cowboys. You've got some tough teams there, but you've got some other pushovers. And I think, the Bucs aren't going to lose all those games to those upper teams and those top tier teams in the league. So I'm hovering around 11, 12 wins this season.
It's like pushing number 1 seed.
I'm hovering around there.
Okay.
From what I've seen,
AFC champ or NFC champs, I should say, at 35-1.
I think they could make it to the NFC Championship game. Ooh. When I look at the NFC, I see the 49ers. Do the Packers take that step forward? Right?
No.
Do the Cowboys finally get over the hump?
No.
They demolished the Eagles last year. What are they better with a couple rookies? At cornerback.
Yeah. I mean, you got the Lions. Bears are going to be phenomenal.
Lions are going to be good. I think the Lions will be good. So I'm looking at 49ers, Lions. I mean, kind of looking around the landscape. I think Atlanta will be good, but I don't think they win division good.
I think it's going to be Atlanta wins the division. I think Tampa. I think 8-9 wins. If everything goes right, I think they can win 10 games.
Well, yeah, I think that's their ceiling. Like, if everything goes right, I think it's 11, 12 wins. I don't think that's there. I think their floor is 8. I think they probably land somewhere at 10, 9, 10. I think 10 is kind of where I have them. But I think if everything goes well, there's an opportunity for them to win 11 or 12 games.
Yeah. I think their floor is much lower. I think things can go wrong in a hurry here. But, yeah, I mean,
I think injuries is what is where you look at. Say, if they get impacted with injuries at Wirfs, Gedeke, Evans, Otten,
Baker.
Baker.
Yeah.
I think you're in trouble. I think you can survive injuries on the defensive side.
This offense scares me when it comes to depth.
But it should be pretty scary when it comes to performing though at full strength.
Yeah. No, very, very solid team. Yeah, I mean, I think the over is a good play here. It's minus 150, so you're letting a little bit of juice there. Playoff, I mean, if you like over 8 wins and you're saying hammer it, then you can get plus 150 on just making the playoffs in a 17 playoff format for a conference.
Yeah, I think they make the playoffs easy.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's great value there. And if you're saying we can win 10 to 12 games here, assuming we stay healthy, I mean, 35-1 to win the NFC is pretty good value.
Yeah, again, I don't know if they win the NFC. I think NFC Championship game is
yeah,
attainable.
but just value wise, that's great value.
I think
because if you win 12 games, you should have Super Bowl aspirations.
I think they win the division. I do. I think they're kind of right on the cusp here of potentially making some noise.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
Yeah, I think my favorite value pick here is win the division at plus 310 because I think they're the second best team in the division. If one thing happens to the Falcons, the Bucs instantly become the best team in the division.
It's definitely, I think it's definitely them the Falcons.
What makes the Falcons the best team in the division? Because Kirk Cousins. I mean,
yeah, on paper, I'm saying with those receivers, Kirk Cousins. I don't love their defense.
Kirk Cousins,
but I think that on paper, and maybe it's a paper tiger.
Who's won more playoff games?
That's a bad argument. Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Baker, but I mean it's not by much.
Like I think both teams are close, and ultimately, if I think they're close and getting plus 310 on win the division, I think that's the best value here, in my opinion.
See, for me, I don't see. I get Kirk Cousins, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. I just don't see how a guy coming off at his age, coming off an Achilles tear, learning a new offense or a variation of a new offense is head and shoulders above a team that's going for their fourth straight divisional title, fifth straight a playoff appearance.
Right. Well, that's the difference between on paper and reality to me. That's one of the things where I'm saying if that goes wrong, then the Bucs are like a pretty clear favorite for the division,
I think. I can't remember who I have winning this division, honestly. So, I mean, I might actually agree with you. But, I mean, I do think...
And to be honest, if you can take away Drake London, they really don't have any other wide receivers out there. Darryl Mooney has not been anything that he was supposed to do. Rondell Moore was traded for peanuts. They signed James Washington, who's a veteran who is on his last legs. They got to figure out how.
You can say Mooney hasn't been anything he was supposed to as a 5th round pick.
Well, I think
Mooney's been very good.
I think there's been aspirations and expectations for Mooney to take the next step, I
think that's just being a victim of Chicago media.
Yeah.
If Darnell Mooney was a Tampa Bay Buccaneer or Carolina Panther, or
I think he's a solid 2.
Yeah, like he would have been considered a lot better than he was. And then,
I mean, he had 2021 and he has not replicated anything close to that since then.
Oh,
he's put up wide receiver 3 numbers since.
I mean, look at who his quarterback was.
Right.
With multiple offensive coordinators.
Against Mike
Basically,
Evans.
I mean, so he was before the
But he's not Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a first ballot Hall of Famer. We're not saying Darnell Mooney's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Before the injury in 22, Mooney was pacing 1,000 yards. So it's kind of, and then in 23, DJ Moore came in. Justin Fields couldn't play with 2 targets. He had one guy he was throwing to, and that was it. So, I think Mooney's getting a little more heat on that than he deserves. I think he's a solid number 2. I think if you're starting to put him above that, that's where you're getting delusion.
He's like Kadarius.
I think it's a low end number 2, high end number 3.
That's fine.
I think you can take him away. He's not a guy you can't take away.
No, I wouldn't say he is. I agree with you on that.
So. He is a weapon, though.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good. I hate the NFL put the Atlanta games early on in the season. I think you probably should have saved at least one of those for later on in the season, but apparently, the Saints and the Panthers to end out the year are more important. But I think Atlanta should have been slotted in one of those spots.
All right. Well, JC, thank you so much for jumping on.
Yeah, man, had a blast.
Can you tell everyone again where they can find your work, anything you want to push out there? The floor is yours.
Yeah, so you can find me, JC Allen NFL on Twitter X. I'm a writer for SI BucsGameday. Find all of our content over there. I also host the Sick Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. Check out my previous guest, head coach Todd Bowles, offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. I got Jalen McMillan coming on this week, and I'll have more throughout the season in the off season. And that's pretty much where you can find me, where you can find my work, and all that fun stuff.
And whenever you see Baker next, tell him Texas Tech secretly still loves him.
I'll let him know.
All right, thank you, JC.
Absolutely.
I just want to break down a little bit of what JC said here. He said, best case scenario, 12 wins. Do you see 12 wins here? Everything goes right.
I think you've got 10 here. And if they sweep the Falcons, it gets them to 11. And another against the Panthers, 12. So, yeah. I mean, it's feasible.
It's feasible. And they're probably
I don't love it, but it's feasible.
Yeah, so I mean, I love
which I think is what he was saying.
If
that's what he thinks best case is, like, then yeah, I can see that.
So some big time matchups we have here. We have Lions week 2 that we both like the Lions in. We have a rematch week 4, Eagles Bucks, that we both like the Buccaneers in. And then we see the Falcons for the first time after that, which we have them splitting. You like the Falcons, I like the Bucks. Moving on down the line here, we have a Super Bowl matchup, Buccaneers Chiefs, where I actually like the Buccaneers and you like the Chiefs in that game. And week 10. And then after that, it's pretty chalk for both of us. I have the Raiders still in one late in the season.
Both have the Panthers taking a game in Carolina.
Yes, and I mean, I think the Panthers are going to be better than people give them credit for. He was talking about it. Dave Canales is hell of a coach. So I definitely think the Panthers can take one, especially with his knowledge of this roster and the construction of that team. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see them take one there. But, yeah, other than that, that's most of the big games they have on the schedule. We both have the Cowboys winning late in the season on Sunday Night Football. And then we have the Buccaneers closing out the season against the Saints and Panthers with wins at home. So
I just want to say, I think this is the toughest division to predict.
Predict, yes, but probably not the toughest division, or even close to the toughest division in football.
Yeah, no, not in football, but as far as like predicting win-loss, I had a really hard time with this division. We both have them sitting at 9 and 8.
And I think that's about right. And 7.5 win total is crazy. So I mean,
that seems.
I do agree with him on run to your Bucky and take that over, because 7.5. I mean, we have the even if you look at, we have them beating somebody here, it's like, well, we still have the Panthers getting a game here. So I mean, I have the Raiders beating them. So I mean, there's. It goes both ways. It's not like I just have them beating all the bad teams and losing to the good teams, or you're the same way, or vice versa. I think they're a solid team, and 7.5 is a crazy number.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.